Tetragrammaton.
I do think that in those moments when thought stops and something emerges, it doesn't invalidate the thought process for me. I don't feel like, oh, well, that was a waste of time. I shouldn't have put so much thought into it because now when I'm not thinking, something's emerging. I think they are interconnected in some way that is beyond my understanding, at least.
When something takes over that's good, what do you think that might be?
I mean, hopefully it's just part of something that has that's like existed and it's accessible to anyone that maybe is open to it, right? You're just kind of like riding this wave.
Yeah.
And I don't know precisely, you know, what it is or its importance or whether it's important at all. Or, you know, every once in a while you have on a project, or there's several times on the project where it's like,
It's not there.
Yeah. But all around it's like, it's now or never.
Yeah.
We're on a clock and there's a lot of people that are waiting and they've done their work and their work's fucking solid.
Yeah.
And are you going to be solid? And that's really uncomfortable to kind of look up and have people looking at you and you realize, I don't have it. It's not there.
Yeah. So in that moment, what do you do? What happens?
Well, I've got a partner in the filmmaker, right? So a lot of times it's, you just got to work your way through into like, well, what isn't working? What's uncomfortable? What's the block? And sometimes you can identify. Sometimes it's maybe it's something in the writing or it's something energetically. It's about moving through the room. I think oftentimes it's a thought process that's getting in the way that I can't identify. And when I was younger, I was working with Ridley Scott. It was such an important moment for me, but we were doing this scene and I had just like really like overwhelming, powerful feeling of, I didn't know what it was. I didn't identify it with any kind of blocking or how it was going to emerge. I just remember I had this feeling and I knew that I wanted to start off this moment just like looking at myself, like looking at my hands, and I didn't even know what that was. And Ridley was really supportive of that. And I think I was 24, 25 or something. And so we did this scene and we did the master, and there was this feeling of like, okay, well, we're in something. This was in the latter part of the day after lunch. We started the scene, and so by the time I got this master, really said, "Look, we're not going to be able to get to coverage tonight, right? So we just got the master." I go, "No problem, cause why? Cause I'm the shit. I know what I'm doing. I fucking got it. It hit me. I'm riding this thing for good." And I made that like horrible mistake of like going home and feeling like I accomplished something. And we came back the next day and I walked in like, I got this. You know, it's like that, the little bit of certainty or arrogance or whatever it was. And like just like a lack of reverence for this thing that I had stumbled into prior. And we shoot the first take of the coverage, and I mean it's instantly it comes to a screeching halt. I can't even get through the take because I'm so embarrassed, and I thought that I owned it and I thought I was in control, and it just slapped me in the fucking face, man. Yeah. So I remember just going, that's it, I'm lost and there's no magic. And Ridley, he came to me and he was like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. It's just I'm looking at my hands, I'm turning this way, I walk over here. Like, I know it now. It's already been done. So there's nothing left. And he says, do the opposite of everything you're doing. And I was like, what? He said, just do the opposite. I said, yeah, but that's not, what the fuck is that? And plus it's not going to match, even if it was good, right? So you think you have to
Yeah.
repeat your movements.
Yeah.
I said, who cares about matching? Just do the opposite. And so I looked at the back of my hands, and then instead of turning left, I turned right. And then instead of saying this line loud, I said it quietly, and it was terrible. He said, go again, do it backwards. Just again, backwards is terrible. And by the third or fourth take, without even being aware of it, I suddenly was going back to matching my things, and I felt this thing coming back, and it was just a rediscovery, and it wasn't adhering to what happened the day before,
Yeah.
and it wasn't desperately searching and trying to come back to this thing. And something emerged there that was different and maybe better than the previous day. And that was a really important moment for me. And to think that such a simple direction that had to do with like just physicality could alter and open up whatever it is that's receiving all of these other things.
When the viewer sees emotion on the screen, does that mean you're experiencing that emotion or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it's surprising. There's I think there are times where all of these elements, the music, the camera lens, the movement of the camera, the color of the wallpaper, the lighting, where it sits in the story, in the film as a whole, all of these things are working to affect the viewer. I've seen rough cuts of films and watching a scene and going, this is terrible. There's a lot of emotion there, but this seems way too, like, what is going on? And I remember being so confused because I was like, I know that I'm coming from the right place. Like, that's what the character would be feeling. And it is that extreme, but it's not working. That's so strange to me. And then I spoke to the director. I said, oh, look, we got to reshoot that. Like, this is really painful. It's an important scene, and it just feels wrong. And he said, okay, we can talk about it. There are things we are going to redo, but let me just work on it a little bit. And then he asked me to come in a month later or something to watch another cut, and that scene came on, and it was pretty good.
Wow.
And
how? What changed?
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
But where it sat in the story, that you just were connected to the character in that moment more. And so you understood like what they were going through made sense, and you suddenly identified. And while it still felt big in a way, extreme, you understood why. Like, you felt it with them. Where prior to that, there was a distance, and so it felt like somebody was being like histrionic.
Yeah.
And that was a really, an amazing, like, humbling moment as an actor, where you really have such an appreciation for a filmmaker and the process of editing and what goes into it, how much you can shape a moment.
You talked about the master shot that was the magical shot, and then coming back the next day to do the other shots. Is it always done that way? Is there always a master shot and then you have to repeat it?
No, and the few directors that I've worked with recently oftentimes will start with the coverage with me, because I have I do get bored easily.
Yeah.
And once that thing has happened, once there's been some discovery, it's very hard for me to go into coverage. Like, if that's happened in the master, part of the thing with shooting a master is you're establishing movement as well, just your physicality in the space. And then sometimes you get to the coverage and you go like, I don't want to go over there anymore.
You already did that.
It's like, well, you've gone,
Yeah.
And so part of it is like, okay, we'll find in the coverage like what feels best. And
Is there any way to do with two cameras, do both at once?
Sometimes they can do that. I mean, Ridley definitely, he's got like 4 cameras going, and so it can be done sometimes. And there's value in that. And sometimes there's also value in like getting to that place where you go, there's nothing left. I don't want to do this. And you push through, and it's true. There was nothing left the way that you were approaching it. But now you're forced to approach it in a new way, and something else emerges. So I don't go in saying, hey, this is the way that I work, because I always feel like I don't know what's best.
Yeah.
And sometimes the director will come and say, you think, should I shoot your coverage first, or should I shoot the other actor's coverage first? And I go, I don't know. I like you should make the decision what's best for you.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you feel like something is like right on the edge of coming out, and let's go for it. And as soon as you try it, and you're wrong, it wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know in advance, can you?
No, I think like sometimes your body's buzzing, so you just go, there's something, but it might be like just the buzzing before disaster strikes, and you've got to shut down.
Yeah.
In
the example again of the master shot, when there's magic, can you always feel it?
No, and I mean, look, magic. I don't, I don't know if it's fucking magic.
Yeah.
It just was like whatever that.
It's a good word. It's a good word to explain, because we don't know what it is anyway.
Right. Yes, both things. There are times where something appears to be magical and seems really great, and vice versa. There's times where you're like, whoa, there was something there, and then you see it, you're like,
Yeah.
wow, wasn't that great? And other times you're just like, yeah, that was just nothing. It was kind of a nothing scene, and you see it, you go like, wait a minute, that was much more depth than I thought that I felt at the time. Like there was something, and those are the moments in some ways that you're most appreciative of, right?
Yeah, when you think like maybe it's not great, and then you see it back and it really works.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah, it feels good, and it's humbling. It's like, it's good to just be reminded. Like,
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't know.
No.
How would you say your relationship to performance has changed over the course of your life?
I don't know. I don't know that it has. I want to perform less. I want to think of it less as a performance, but I don't know that that's the case. When I was young, my siblings used to sing on the streets. We'd go to Westwood. My brother would play guitar, and the four of us younger kids would sing, and we would do these rehearsals with my dad kind of overseeing it. And for some reason, it's just, my nature was to be in opposition to any suggestion that my dad might have had. And with it, this attitude, this belief or feeling of like, just get me out there.
Let me do my thing.
But like, put me in like the real world scenario, because I can't be on the holodeck right now with you, right? Coming up with this thing, because it's not real. We're in this living room, and I can't do it. But like, we're on the streets, and there's like a little crowd there, and I actually have to go out with the hat, to collect $1 here. Like, let me go. And I think in some ways, maybe there's still a part of me that has that. That's like, let's go into the real world situation where I might like totally fuck up in front of everybody. And then maybe I can, I wonder whether I'm 49 years old. It was like over 40 years ago. And a part of me wonders if I'm still fueled by that same thing in some ways.
Was that indicative of your overall relationship with your dad, or only as it related to the playing out?
I think with everything that I do, I'm I'm a bit cursed with like a don't tell me, you know. But I'm always reminded how much I need
Yeah.
someone else and how appreciative I am. But no, I think in terms of other things in life, I think that I was, open. I just felt with that creative part couldn't have,
I understand that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine it's very difficult for the filmmakers I've worked with because they are 90% of the time in the last, 15 years, I'd say 90%, maybe 95% of the directors I've worked with, they were the authors. They wrote the script as well,
Wow.
right? And usually they're the kind of filmmakers where it's quite personal. It's not like kind of hired to write a genre piece. It's something that, comes from a very personal place. So it must be incredibly difficult for them to hand it off. And I think that I am somebody that feels like I need to feel like this is my life, not this is your life that that I'm plugging into.
Yeah.
This is my life.
That's what makes it a real collaboration, though. You're not just a stand-in for them. You're there to contribute.
Right. But it still must be very difficult for them. And there are times where, sometimes the contribution, it must be, I feel like sometimes they look at you like your child, where you're like, I can see that you are going to go up those stairs in a dangerous way, and it's wrong, and I want to tell you stop. But I also know that I have to allow you to make that mistake, and you're going to be a better man because of it. But it must be so, I know how hard it is with my son, and I know sometimes directors are just looking, going like, oh, what you're doing is just so stupid. That's so wrong. You're just approaching this scene all wrong. And oftentimes I go, I know, trust me, I feel how bad this is. Just please let me fuck up. Please, let me just get this wrong, because if I can own the mistake and I can live in it, then maybe
you can find your way.
Maybe. And yes, and I need you to tag me here and there and pick me up a little bit, help me dust off. And sometimes you're like, if you see something like, when you have a camera, there's a frame, and you as the person within the frame, you're going, well, all of this is happening. It's all what's going on with my leg here and this. And I go, no, we're not seeing any of that.
Yeah.
So you may think that this is standing out and this is what's working and this is what isn't working. You're wrong.
Might not even be on the camera.
It's not. Here's the only thing that matters.
Wow.
And sometimes that's like, okay, thank you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought of it.
For most of my career, I didn't watch playback. And fairly recently, 5 years ago, I started kind of, watching it more. And not all the time, just, part of it was to have that, perspective, to sit with the director and watch it take and to talk about it a little bit. It actually, it seemed like it was helpful in some situations, but maybe not. It just feels like it might have been.
It didn't feel like it screwed you up, though.
No, I think I got over that when I was younger.
Yeah.
It just made me so self-conscious and insecure, and I think as I was older, it just made me recognize all the other work that's happening around me. Just okay, hold on. Mm-hmm. I don't have to deliver the entirety of this film in this one moment. Mm-hmm. The whole movie is not resting on this one take that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a part of it. And that's when you go oh, fuck, well, that lighting is, that's doing most of the work.
Yeah.
I just need to
Yeah, you just need to be there.
Be there.
Yeah.
So much of today's life happens on the web. Squarespace is your home base for building your dream presence in an online world. Designing a website is easy, using one of Squarespace's best-in-class templates. With the built-in style kit, you can change fonts, imagery, margins, and menus. so your design will be perfectly tailored to your needs. Discover unbreakable creativity with Fluid Engine, a highly intuitive drag and drop editor. No coding or technical experience is required. Understand your site's performance with in-depth website analytics tools. Squarespace has everything you need to succeed online. Create a blog, monetize a newsletter, make a marketing portfolio, launch an online store. The Squarespace app helps you run your business from anywhere. Track inventory and connect with customers while you're on the go. Whether you're just starting out or already managing a successful brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create and customize a beautiful website. Visit squarespace.com/Tetra and get started today.
Would you say you live in your head or your body?
I mean, I probably in my head more. Yeah.
Always been the case?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I am also so aware of feeling and emotion in my body, and I'm not sure which one, you know.
Would you say you are moved through the world or you move yourself through the world?
Both things. I mean, this feels like what, you know, what I am navigating always in life and in my work. Ultimately, I feel like I don't have control, but I do so much work to get there. I mean, there are times where I think I do like a fight. I like a fight, and I'm comfortable losing. I'm comfortable laying on the ground and going, okay, you win, like you got me. But I don't start there. And part of me wants to, part of me, maybe sometimes I do. Sometimes hopefully I'm getting better at just coming in and saying, okay, what is it? Right?
Not every at-bat is a home run.
It's
It's
not.
impossible.
You know, every scene can't be a special scene. It shouldn't be. There's some scenes that are just like connective tissue. But there are times where, you know, everyone knows, like, oh boy, this is an important one. You walk on set, just, it always just feels like dead man walking. Like,
Wow.
just for some reason, like walking on set, just go like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. You know, this is gonna be bad.
Have you found any practices that help you get through the difficulty of the job?
I don't know that I want to.
That's a good answer.
Again, I think there's something that feels right about it being difficult, because here's the thing. In some ways, it's fucking easy in that there's a whole support system set up, particularly as an actor and as a known actor. Things are set up to make it like as easy as possible for you, right? Everyone's there like, can I get you anything? Can I get, you know? And so in some ways, I feel like I have multiple takes. It's not like you're shooting the free throw and you're like down by 2 and somebody's screaming, fans are like, fuck you, you suck. Like, there's none of that.
Yeah.
The other actors aren't like, hope you fucking bite. You know what I mean? It's like, you think about other things where like professionals are at
It's
it.
so
like,
funny.
Right? So in some ways, everybody is there to help me be the best that I can be.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe there's some part of me that feels like, well, that can't be good. You know, it's okay, but we also need to make sure there's some fire here. There's something to fight against.
Tell me about meditation. Is it something that you've practiced?
It's the thing that I'm always trying to practice and feel like I'm failing at. I've had some good runs, and then I'll just, you know, I'll lose it. I mean, I literally have in my calendar on repeat morning night meditation to remind me to get up, like, okay, take advantage of this time. And it's been a bit more difficult with my kids now, just because I like to get up and make breakfast for my son, so I'm just not forcing myself to get up early. I was in this thing where I just was waking up at 5 a.m. just so that was easier. But no, I've struggled with it recently.
How would you say the dynamics of your current little family compares to the dynamics of your childhood family?
Well, I mean, our circumstances are so wildly different. I mean, it's funny because literally just this morning at 2, when my son woke up and wanted to leave, and our youngest, she's a bit colicky. It's really difficult when a baby's like crying like that. So it's so hard. I'd been away, right, just doing press for a week. So my wife has just been, doing this on her own. It's just so much for her.
She's doing okay with it? She's strong?
Yeah, she's amazing. She's amazing. But, I go, my parents had 5 kids. They didn't have any fucking money.
No help, nothing.
I mean, like the difference in wealth between like my parents and me, it's insane. And so, look, obviously, I have a lot of my dad's biology and personality and, everything. And yet I have such a different support structure. He didn't have the family that I have. His father was long gone out of the picture before he was in his adolescence. And my mom she's just an incredible, grounded, strong, and beautiful woman. And my sisters, great siblings. So my kids now have that. I mean, they have that in my mom, and my sisters are great aunts, there, and they're cousins. And so it feels, I think when I was a kid, it was an isolated family. It was very much out of step or fashion with what was kind of acceptable in some ways, right? My parents were counterculture, and growing up, I think it was just probably more difficult to find like-minded people, where now I think it's much easier. And so people feel a connection and support in whatever their beliefs may be. Whereas at the time, we were always like the only people that, were vegan or were being homeschooled or whatever kind of alternative medicinal practices that they may have been interested in. And so that's something my kids are not going to experience, right? Probably more than likely. I mean, they are
They
in a
won't
world.
feel as much like outsiders.
I don't think so.
How was your parents' relationship? Did they get along well?
There was deep, profound love, and a unity, like a shared goal, a shared belief, and a shared foundation, and a real powerful love. But then I think after they'd been together they divorced or they split up when I was maybe 15. So they were
When
probably.
it happened, did it make sense to you that they split up, or was it?
Oh yeah,
weird?
I was like, fuck, please.
Oh yeah.
Like no problem with it.
Yeah.
At all, because your kids, you love both your parents. You go whatever
want them
makes
to
you
be
guys
happy.
happy.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and I think for me, I was old enough. I imagine every kid feels differently. So I don't know what my youngest sibling feels like. It would be different being 12 years old versus being 15. But for me, it was fine.
Tell me about living in Costa Rica.
My dad first went there like in, God, 90, 91 or something like that. And it was very different, it was like a, 8-hour, 9-hour journey. And, there's a bus from San Jose. It was like harrowing. And of course, when you're 14 and 15 and you think you're invincible, it's just like the best time. It's just like, oh, so exciting.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. Then you would take a ferry across, and you'd hope to catch the right ferry. If the bus was late, you might miss that one. Sometimes you have to stay the night. Sometimes you make it, get across the other side, all dirt roads, bumps. It was adventurous, and anybody that was there because they were adventurous. It was just a small little town and just great people, a really eclectic group of people.
Where were the people from that you'd meet?
Everywhere.
All over the world?
German, Swiss, Italian, yeah, all over the world. It was this spot. Again, this is like before the internet. So this is all just like word of mouth.
How do they even
right?
know? Yeah.
One person goes down there and tells their friend.
What do you think all the people who went there were looking for? What was the shared interest?
I don't know. I think some of them were just wanted to escape. I think some of them, they weren't even looking for something. They were like looking to get away. There always felt like there were like a few people that seemed like a little shady.
Mm-hmm.
Like those expats that are like, but I think a simplicity, a return to nature. We got there, almost everybody rode horses. Like there weren't like cars in
That's
the town.
cool.
It was like everybody. And it was just like the owner of this bar and hotel had a car, and this one as well.
Everyone else had horses?
Horses or he walked. Yeah, that was it. You just walked.
Did you learn to ride a horse there?
I did. Yeah.
Were your parents into theatrical stuff? Were they into performance?
I think my dad, harbored a desire, but it was so far removed from what his experience was growing up. He was a real, working class kid from Fontana. And again, just a real tough upbringing. So I don't think he could even dream of something. And I think it was like he's also probably like, if he told his brothers that he wanted to do a school play, they'd probably call him a pussy. And, is that kind of culture,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that, my dad was probably the real, I know he was a very sensitive person, it's like deeply sensitive, but he came from a tough place, and he spent most of his teenage years in juvenile hall, and he was a fighter. And I remember he wasn't a fighter, but he had it in him. And
Yeah.
he wanted
He didn't
a peaceful
want to be
resolution.
a fighter.
Yeah, but he would not fucking back down.
Yeah.
And I saw him in some situations that just scared the fuck out of me.
Wow.
But also, you felt like, well, this wild animal has got my back. It's going to do whatever he can, He was a really interesting guy. And he played guitar. And I think he probably did have like a desire to be a singer-songwriter. And again, I don't think he really knew how to do that.
Yeah. What was his taste in music? What did he listen to?
Well, when I was older, he loved Steel Pulse was the band.
Yeah.
That was like, and honestly, there's some of those records are fucking amazing. It's just.
Would there be music playing in your house usually or no?
There was a lot of Beatles. My parents, they like Beatles, but I don't remember again, we didn't really have things, early on. I think it wasn't until I was like 11 years old that somehow we had a record player. But I don't think anyone even knew that one of the speakers wasn't working. It was like that.
The human foot is a true marvel of engineering. With 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles and tendons, it's built for flexibility, balance, and natural movement. Unfortunately, today's narrow, rigid, elevated shoes undermine this natural brilliance and weaken your feet. Vivo Barefoot shoes set your feet free. Feel every step. Move naturally. Allow your feet to function as nature intended with Vivo Barefoot. Thin, flexible soles to keep you connected to the ground. Wide toe boxes to let your toes spread and stabilize. Minimalist shoes designed to mimic the barefoot experience. Whether you're running, hiking, or just going about your day, Vivo Barefoot has you covered precisely when and where you need it most. Feel the vibration of the earth. Strengthen your feet. Improve your posture. Enhance your natural movement with Vivo Barefoot. Made from 100% recycled and natural materials, they are as healthy for the planet as they are for you. Experience the freedom of barefoot movement with the protection from the sharp edges of a man-made world. Natural movement for your feet, sustainable choices for our world. Learn more at vivobarefoot.com/tetra and embrace your human nature.
Did you feel like you had a home base, or did you feel like you moved around enough to where you felt like you just lived wherever you were?
Felt like we had a home base, even though we may not have.
Yeah.
Never felt like,
Because you just, in the group, you felt home base.
solid,
Right.
no matter what it was. My parents had such faith,
Yeah.
and we in turn had that there was never
That's
a moment
beautiful.
like, and I remember being aware that we were struggling financially.
Yeah.
But I think some of that in some ways was a choice. I mean, I think there was this point they just relinquished all materialistic items. They were kind of like, and lived by faith and trusted in that. Trusted that we were going to
That
get.
sounds great.
It's pretty magical, to be honest. It was. Again, I don't. I don't know what it was to be a 9-year-old girl in that situation. Maybe my youngest sibling feels differently about it. But I think that, I know that we all felt safe
Yeah.
and provided for. And I think, there were those moments that define you. And giving our dog away. We had to because we were traveling across the states and we couldn't feed him. And my dad, we were in a parking lot of a grocery store. My dad literally just going in and trying to find somebody that would take this dog. And he did. He found somebody. He was a fucking genius with some stuff. I mean, my dad was very resourceful, and he found this guy, and then we watched the guy come out with a big bag of dog food, and we were sad that we were parting ways with the dog, and then so happy that we knew that he'd found this new home. And so there were those kind of experiences that I think shaped us, and whatever it was that we were going through, we went through it together.
Yeah.
It's that simple, and there's I don't know what more you could ask for.
That sounds great. Tell me the different places you lived.
So I was born in Puerto Rico.
How long did you live in Puerto Rico?
Probably a year or something.
So no real memories of Puerto Rico.
No.
Right. How did your parents end up in Puerto Rico?
My parents lived in Puerto Rico. They were with this group called the Children of God. And there was a
commune?
Yeah, it was a commune. I think it felt like it was a commune.
Yeah.
A shared commune of ideals. And they had some friends that they met, I believe, in Texas who were going there. And so they said, you got to come to this place. It's amazing. We're all living together. And I honestly don't know the details of what sparked it for them. But I know that they both had, a kind of a, I think what they would describe as a profound spiritual awakening of just a shared belief of like, well, we don't want to raise our kids in this system. So they went to Puerto Rico. I always thought, that everybody kind of lived, in this place in Puerto Rico. But I think that the main group was somewhere. I don't even know where. Not you
So
know.
what's the first place you remember?
So the first place I remember was Venezuela.
How old were you in Venezuela?
I was probably, let's see, I was probably 2.5 years old at this time. I was the third born. My mom was pregnant with my sister Liberty, who was born in Caracas. And my first memory is being in a pool, my dad holding me. I was terrified of the iguanas that were going along the
How big
pool.
were they?
I mean, to me, they were fucking dinosaurs, right?
They really do look like dinosaurs.
Yes, it's incredible. It's incredible. And so my dad basically was the caretaker for this elderly woman, and she allowed us to stay in this room that was off of her house. And as I recall, she was not a wealthy person, but I think she more took pity on my family. And my dad was like, if you let us stay here,
I'll help.
I'll do whatever I can. You know, it's kind of that situation. And
Yeah. So that wasn't a community based on the group that they followed.
no. And they had been friends with a local priest in Venezuela. And I believe they went to him and they said, we have to get out of here. We have no means. Can you help us? And he had a friend that worked on a ship that was exporting Tonka toy trucks from Venezuela to the States, and it was going to Florida. And it happened that my grandparents, my mother's parents, lived in Florida. And we were stowaways. Somehow this person got us on this ship.
Do you remember being on the ship?
I remember very clearly because this I remember clearly because these
How
were
old were
these
you at that time?
So I turned 3 years old on the boat. And I think I remember this because I turned 3 years old. And okay, so first let me clarify. So when I say stowaways, we couldn't have been like really proper stowaways because people knew that we were there and they knew it was my birthday and they baked me a cake. But I think we were there free. It was like somehow
They were being cool.
They were being cool.
They were being cool.
Because I don't think it wasn't a passenger ship.
No.
Right?
You have your birthday on the boat.
My birthday on the boat, they bring out a cake. Again, we were living very
How many
simply.
of you were at this time?
There's 4 of us. At this point, my sister's been born. My sister Liberty's been born. And my mom is pregnant with my sister Summer.
And that's everybody.
Yes, there's 4 of us. Summer would be the last one,
So
right?
everybody was there except Summer wasn't yet born.
Summer wasn't yet born.
Okay.
They baked me a cake, a birthday cake, and they gave me some Tonka toy trucks. Never had toys.
Awesome.
Never, don't remember any kind of cake, anything like that. So that was monumental feeling of a real sense of safety and love and care from strangers.
Yeah.
But then the other event, and I've talked about this a great deal, so I'm not boring you, but
I don't know any of this. Tell me everything.
Okay.
I love this story. What a cool life.
It's wild.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And so with this love and support from these strangers, which, obviously meant a lot, I think it's something that I was aware of how much we relied on people. You just kind of sense that. But then I remember they were catching fish on this boat, and I imagine it was for themselves. I imagine it obviously wasn't a fishing vessel, right? It was probably just like for this journey. But they were catching fish in a net, so it was like what seemed to me. I remember vast amounts. Maybe it was 20. I don't know. But they dumped them on the side of the ship, the platform. We were there. This is outside, and the fish are flapping around, and they would throw them against the side of the boat to stun them. And I think as children, this was so shocking to us to see how vibrant and full of life and how desperate. There's, I think, quite captures that desperation as like wanting oxygen and like what the body does almost without control.
Yeah.
It is beyond a choice. So that desperate flailing movement It's so shocking. And I remember we were all, the kids collectively were just floored by this, and we were crying and we were screaming, and we wanted it to stop. And it's very hard for me to believe, but my mother says that I said, and I remember one of us saying, "Why didn't you tell us what this was? That this was meat?" Right? When we ate fish, you don't know, and you're just eating fish. You don't understand that it once was this thing. Now my mom says that I said that. I was 3 years old, but having a child that was just 3 years old and
They're smart.
fucking very aware, and things come out, and I was okay. Maybe I did, but I know that all of my siblings, we all had that same feeling, that same realization, and from that moment, we said we're never eating meat again. Like, we're not eating anything.
And has that been the case?
And that has been the case.
Wow.
And my parents, to their credit, honored that wish.
This was the kid's decision, not your parents' decision.
That's right. I mean, I think that years before, my parents had experimented with vegetarianism. And then they probably, to be honest, there was a point where I think we were living however we could. But there was a decision. So I don't think it was a completely foreign concept to them. But I think it probably was. I imagine that it was difficult because they're just going like, I think they're going like, do you know what it takes just to fucking feed, 6 of us with another one on the way? We're just trying to figure this out however we can, and now we got these restrictions put on us. I imagine, but I never felt that. So then from there we arrived in Miami, and I remember seeing my grandparents from the boat. I remember looking down at the dock and seeing them being pointed out and them waving.
That's your mom's parents.
That's my mom's parents.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, my brother River, who I think you must have met, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know where this idea came from. It certainly wasn't popular at the time, but he just felt like, why are we taking anything from an animal? And that just led to our veganism. And so my sister Summer was born vegan in 1977. And we've been vegan ever since. So that's why I remember that, it was a really instrumental part of our life, and probably a story that we experienced and then we talked about my whole life. So it was like one of those memories that was like that period. It was a big transitional period for the family.
How was Florida different than Venezuela?
I don't know that.
For you?
Well, what I remember is there was a Alfonso, I almost remembered his name, Alfonso Sainz or something like that, who I think might have been somehow involved in the music industry, maybe a record producer. So I don't know, for some reason. And I don't know how this happened. I don't know why we ended up in Winter Park, which is outside of Orlando. I don't know how we got there because I don't think my grandparents didn't live there. I think they lived in West Palm Beach. But my dad was the groundskeeper for this guy. I don't know how.
So your dad got a job. That makes sense.
Yeah, my dad got a job.
Yeah, and that's why
and we lived on the property.
Makes sense.
And I remember it being good.
How long did you live in Florida?
So I got there, Summer was born, it was probably 3.5, almost 4, maybe I turned 4, and then, let's see, I don't really know, I guess,
years?
Well, maybe a couple years or something.
Couple years.
I think we probably came out to California.
And then what?
In California.
And how did that happen?
I don't know, other than part of it is, all right, well, the thing that I think maybe that I left out when I was born, he, started playing guitar. So it was probably Venezuela. Rain and River started performing together, and they would go. My dad, I think part of like the missionary work would be to go into like jails, and they would like perform for inmates, right? And then they kind of like got better, and they had
But this was doing the missionary work for the group, but then you leave the group, but they continued performing?
No, because I think when they left the group, that's when we got on the boat.
Yeah.
I think part of what it was with the group was like, your job is to go and pass out pamphlets and like get people to join. I think for my parents, it was like spreading the word.
Yeah.
Right? Missionary work.
Yeah, something they believed in. Absolutely.
Yes. And it was connected to the group, but how much they lived with the group or our lives, I don't have a lot of memories of the group, memories of the family. I don't think my siblings going out and performing was necessarily connected to the group. I don't think it was a requirement of the thing. I think it was something that my dad and them did because they believed.
Yeah.
They believed in like.
If you believe in something, you want to spread the word. Something good.
I think so. And so I guess at some point, I don't know where this came from, if my parents suggested it, I don't know if somebody else suggested it, but they performed in talent shows.
Do you remember seeing them perform?
I don't. I have memories, but I think it's from newspaper clippings that I saw when I was older or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not sure. And I think that I was young. I do know that there's a point where I wanted to be
You want to join the
part
group.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, really didn't happen till later. So they would play, and I think they got a lot of notice. And, it's one of those things. I think it was probably undeniable that at that young age, they both had something, right? And it is whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
Well, whatever that means,
Yeah.
right? I think... Yeah, I have a memory of my brother being quite young and just owning the guitar.
Wow.
Not playing a lead kind of way, just like a rhythm. Like he was just a kid who had a guitar that was bigger than him, and he fucking owned it.
Yeah.
And so I think it was that kind of thing where you're like, well, that person, they have found an instrument for expression that is just whatever it is. That was his thing. And so I think my parents, recognized that. So my mom had gone to school maybe with Penny Marshall. Who at the time, of course, was in a really successful show, Laverne and Shirley, right? And she wrote her a letter and would you meet my kids? They seem to have something in this desire, and they're doing this thing. And the story is that Penny wrote back and was like, "Congratulations, don't come out to LA."
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that. I can only imagine. Like now, if I got a letter like that from somebody who's like, "I knew you when I was a kid. My kids really want to do something. Can we come out to LA? Will you meet them?" You'd be like,
What would I do?
what am I going to do?
What could I even do? Yeah.
I don't, my parents, we went to LA anyways.
LMNT, element electrolytes. Have you ever felt dehydrated after an intense workout or a long day in the sun? Do you want to maximize your endurance and feel your best? Add element electrolytes to your daily routine. Perform better and sleep deeper. Improve your cognitive function. Experience an increase in steady energy with fewer headaches and fewer muscle cramps. Element electrolytes. Drink it in the sauna. Refreshing flavors include grapefruit, citrus, watermelon, and chocolate salt. Formulated with the perfect balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to keep you hydrated and energized throughout the day. These minerals help conduct the electricity that powers your nervous system so you can perform at your very best. Element electrolytes are sugar-free, keto-friendly, and great tasting. Minerals are the stuff of life. So visit drinklmnt.com/tetra and stay salty with Element Electrolytes. LMNT.
So your family moved to LA chasing a dream.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Or either chasing a dream or being pulled by something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they were right. Right? Like what?
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, there was nothing. Nothing was forced. We
No.
were fucking living by faith. We had nothing. We had no means,
Yeah.
and it worked.
And faith came through.
It did. So I guess maybe chasing a dream, but part of me also feels like
I didn't mean it in a negative
no.
way.
I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm having my own conversation
yeah.
with myself about it, and have throughout my life, because it's in some ways it's insane and reckless.
It's a wild story. Yeah. I wouldn't use the word reckless because it's not like they were protecting anything before. It's like maybe they were taking a chance, but I wouldn't use the word reckless.
No, you're right. I mean, I guess it's really incredible the faith they had and this belief, because having kids now myself, the amount of work that I do to try to guarantee that things are going to be smooth.
Yeah.
With all the means that I have.
Yeah.
This part of me goes like, you are putting yourself into another situation which you did not know the outcome. And now you have even more kids, right? And you have a brand new baby. And we're just getting in the car, driving in a car that, shouldn't take local roads. And you're on the 10 going west,
So you guys drove across the country.
We drove across the country.
Wow. Any memory of that, being in the car?
Yeah. I mean, that was where we gave away the dog. The very strong memory is it was this old station wagon, they used to have that one window that rolled up in the back.
Yeah.
That window was broken, right?
So open all the time.
Open all the time.
Yeah.
And at some point it got cold.
Yeah. Would you guys sleep in the car?
We'd sleep in the car.
Wow.
And I never questioned this story growing up. And now as an adult, I'm questioning how my father came to this conclusion. But it was cold, and the only solution, I think, available to him, I have to imagine available, and all he could think of, was to take Pampers, diapers, and to stick them together to cover up the back window. But I like, wasn't there a tarp? Wasn't there duct tape? How well can a diaper stick? It has to come undone. So I have such a vivid memory, so I know that it happened.
Yeah.
But it seems
Makes
insane.
no sense. Yeah.
Right. It's like, but I have to believe that it must have been the middle of the fucking night, and suddenly the weather dropped, and there's no, there's no version of like we can stop and get, and all we have are some diapers. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a trash bag and some diapers together. In my mind, it's diapers.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something else as well. Maybe the window could only go up, halfway or 3/4 away, and the rest was done with diapers. I don't know. It's funny how those stories that you tell them, you go, I should like clarify. I should, for myself, that you never really wonder about. Like it's just part of your life. But there were those kind of moments. Again, my dad always being really ingenious with surviving, right? Just making it work.
The power of faith is unbelievable.
Yeah, completely. And my parents had that. I mean, they.
Would you say you have it?
I don't know that I do.
Yeah. Did you ever have it?
Yes, and I think that in some ways, I do. I don't have it the way that they did.
Yeah.
I don't think that I could. I don't think I could. I mean, my parents, there's a picture of them with 4 kids hitchhiking, literally hitchhiking. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. You also don't know because you never had to have that. That's the other thing. It's like they rose to the occasion. And it sounds like in a pretty positive way. Like it wasn't bad vibes in your house. It wasn't like pity and crying all the time. It was like, let's go.
Antithesis. No problem. I mean, I think that I've always felt purpose, connected to something. Maybe I'm just not as comfortable with that language, or maybe it feels like wanting a more, I don't know, a different understanding of it. But I think I do have a feeling of knowing a certain comfort and a knowing, or that the things are moving in a direction and I'm a part of it and
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And that was your role in the family too. So what you're describing, that also makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my personality is such, my nature is such, I was very comfortable being the third born and not having any real responsibility. I think that's how I expected my life to go.
Yeah.
And I was good with it. I knew that I was going to be an actor from being young, at a point when I had already acted and moved away from it. But I didn't think that it would be of value to the family in any way, that I thought that it would strictly just be for my own benefit. And my brother was very much, I'd say, the driving force of the family in some ways. Even, my dad at this point, when he got older, he'd been so hobbled from his life. I mean, literally just back broken and legs, and just from car accidents from a very young age. So physically, he was somebody that was in pain. My whole life, my dad was in pain. And he dealt with it in a way that his life experience helped him to deal with it, just usually to numb it with alcohol, right? So it's the only way that I think he could cope with it. He didn't, but I don't want that to sound too dramatic, and I don't know that it was that dramatic, but I think it's something I would say now. I don't think that he would have said that. I don't know, other people would have, I don't know. But I would say that.
He was drinking to self-medicate because
For sure, and he was in pain, and who knows what a man's expectations of themselves may be, and where he got to, and maybe there was a point where he took the family as far as he could take it.
Yeah.
His ingenuity.
Yeah.
I imagine it's like the dream that your child is going to take over in some ways, and also probably very difficult to face your mortality.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you're preparing yourself for that, or you're comfortable doing that. I don't know that my impression of my father at some point was somebody that was hurt.
Yeah.
And I don't know what level of hurt that is. I don't know how much of it was physical, how much of it was spiritual or emotional. And obviously, somebody who definitely had many unresolved things within his own family and life experience. So my brother, I think, was the kind of driving force of the family, and certainly was the, probably the singular force that took us out of relying on the kind gestures of others to where, we bought a house. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so I was very comfortable with that. And I think when my brother died, I think I just turned 18, and I imagine, I know that I felt a certain push to take on some responsibilities for the family in some ways. I can't remember what led me to this. I can't remember. I feel like you asked me something that prompted this, but I don't know how I came to that.
Yeah.
I guess faith. When you were talking about faith, I had faith. I think at some point, maybe that was shook a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe I felt like I'm gonna grab these motherfucking reins and
Wow.
do something. I don't. This goes back to one of your earlier questions. I don't know if I was leading that, or if I was being pulled. I
Understood.
I don't know, what that was.
Did you feel it as a sense of responsibility? What would be the word for the feeling?
Part of it, honestly, that part of me wants to say that, but then when I think, like, prior to my brother's death, he was like, "Listen, you're gonna start acting again. Okay, you're gonna be really good. You're gonna do it. You're gonna go for it. You're gonna fucking do it. You're gonna be more of an actor than I am." And so he was like, "Listen, I'm doing this movie. You're auditioning for the brother in it." And kind of got me back into this. Is after I lived in Costa Rica for a few years. I'd stepped away from acting because I was acting as a kid. And I came back. I started, actively going to New York and auditioning, and, auditioning to play this part. I think that probably just because he was like, as my brother and I wanted to play my brother, I still auditioned for it and we were going to do this movie. So I think in some ways it was already moving in that direction. And then this seismic event happened in my life, which then was like,
Now what?
yeah. So it's really interesting looking back on it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to know what thing was coming
You said
first.
that you knew you wanted to be an actor from young. Yeah. You never wanted to do anything else.
No, but I started acting so young. I mean, again, before acting, we were singing on the streets, and I definitely felt probably alive. And I think in some ways, if you were gonna psychoanalyze the family dynamics and being the third born, and there was a certain, even though there was faith in the family, there was at times chaos. I mean, it's just the fucking
Of
nature.
course.
I don't know how you have
Of course
5 kids and
Yeah.
a dog, and not have the means. And I seem to remember, going out and singing these songs and dancing on the streets and just feeling like fucking invincible.
Yeah.
It's like,
Did it have to do with the reaction or not necessarily?
I'm sure because I wasn't going to get the same thing just being with my dad,
Yeah.
right? Doing the songs in front of him.
Yeah.
But, it's that unique thing that happens in a situation where you're performing in front of a crowd. It's who's giving who the energy.
Yeah.
Who starts it.
Yeah.
And at some point it becomes this reciprocal experience, right? So I think that was the first kind of feeling. And then my River started acting, and me and my sister guest starred in a show that he did. And what did it feel like? I don't know how to articulate it. It just felt, I think it was like both, totally powerful and totally vulnerable, simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's like,
You're out there.
yeah. And it was just fucking fun.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old, and
Yeah.
it's cool running around on a set, and everyone is so cool. You're 8 years old. I mean, like, the Grips are the coolest motherfuckers there, man. You got dudes rolling around belts, and they got all this gear on. You know what I mean? And it's a weird little circus. It's a cool life.
Yeah.
It's, it's interesting. And I would say in their own way, every single person on the set is creative, right? They are all doing something. And so there is a very powerful energy on a set, even on like a mediocre TV show. It's still really amazing, like the forces that come together.
It's a group effort for sure.
It is. And when you're a kid, you're real sensitive to that shit. Like, you really feel like, well, hold on, there's something happening here that is like fucking buzzing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, you walk on it, you smell the lights, it all still smells the same. And there's the sounds of the trucks that are there, they're moving in the honey wagons. And it's such a eclectic group of people that normally their lives might not intersect.
Yeah.
Right? And yet here they are in this kind of like unified effort. So there's something just very attractive and fun about it, I think, as a kid, as part of it.
You've gotten to work with probably the greatest living directors. How different is it from director to director? Are their styles different? Are they similar?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the styles are different. But at some point, there's one like connective tissue, which is like just like a powerful, like perceptive quality that allows them to like seek out truth in a moment, right? And there are times where you're filming through and you go, that's all right, and 90% of the directors are like, good. Sometimes they're like, wow.
Yeah.
And the other 10%, those special ones,
Yeah.
if you ever do something where you think, okay, and you actually feel okay, and somebody's like, it's just heartbreaking and crushing and also so exciting. And you're just like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, what can that be? Is particularly just if you start off from a place of like, okay, well, here's something, and then you have a partner saying, no, not really.
Welcome to the House of Macadamias. Macadamias are a delicious superfood, sustainably sourced directly from farmers. Macadamias, a rare source of omega-7, linked to collagen regeneration, enhanced weight management, and better fat metabolism. Macadamias, heart healthy and brain boosting fats. Macadamias, paleo-friendly, keto and plant-based. Macadamias, no wheat, no dairy, no gluten, no GMOs, no preservatives, no palm oil, no added sugar. House of Macadamias, dry roasted with Namibian sea salt, cracked black pepper, and chocolate dipped. Snack bars come in chocolate, coconut white chocolate, and blueberry white chocolate. Visit houseofmacadamias.com/tetra.
If there's going to be another take, would it more likely be you saying, let me try it again, or would it be the director saying, let's do it again?
Oh, no, it's them.
Do you ever say, let's do it again, I want to try one more time?
Very rarely. Very rarely. I'm always struggling with this like feeling of like, yes, there's something for me to do. I'm being guided by something, and just like crushing insecurity and fear. It's just so stupid. But part of me is like, oh, what it would take for me to say like, I want another one.
Yeah.
Because then it'd be like, whoa, okay, whoa, what are you gonna do? Whoa, what are you gonna do? So I'm
It's
always
setting yourself up for asking for another one.
a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that by the time we get to the last take, we are locked in usually.
Understood.
I mean, the filmmaker of like what we're after. It's more earlier on as we're talking about things where it's like, and sometimes all I can do is just say, there's something missing.
Do you ever change the lines?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, the best is when you go, wow, I just made up some great shit. And you're like, whew. And then you look at the script and you did exactly what was written. And that's the best feeling.
Does the person you're playing against impact your performance?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Because you're reacting to them.
Yeah, I mean, for every reason that's, I mean, there's so many different reasons, right? Just, yeah, of course. You get two actors trying to do the exact same thing, you're still going to have a different reaction to just who that person is. And, sometimes you're looking at a piece of tape next to the camera and you're talking to that and you can't even see the other actor,
Can you play any character, or do you need to feel a connection to that character to do it?
I don't think that I could play any kind of character. And I think there's some that you're just, are more right for. I mean, I do think like you got to be cast. Maybe there are some actors that can do anything. I don't trust them.
You have to believe your character. Do you have to agree with their position?
No. You just have to know that
You have to know that they do.
yeah, and at some point you have to believe it in that moment,
Yeah.
right? You have to, but yeah, I guess it's always the trick, right? To try to go from observing from a distance to experiencing and presenting as if it's your own. Because if you remain at a distance, if you're laughing at the character, or you're going like, look, that's not how I feel, but
They don't want to be good.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think you can sense that sometimes in performances. And I'm sure, I've done it. I think the hope is that you are as connected as possible.
Could you ever imagine not doing it?
Yes. I don't know. Maybe not. Uh, I've been working a lot the last few years, and I think subconsciously having a kid probably has a lot to do with that. Although I didn't feel like I was making those decisions in the moment, but I knew what I was sacrificing, what I was moving away from in order to do them,
Yeah.
and I felt a need to do it. And part of me has been really struggling with several things recently that I think, I never regret anything just because to have the life where I'm sitting in right now, it's hard to ever regret anything. But I don't want to make too much of a thing of what I do, but I feel like in some ways I'd always had a reverence for the kind of like the purest possible form of this entertainment thing that I do. And I always steered clear of being motivated by money or prestige or anything. And it really was pure, not because I'm fucking virtuous or anything, but just, I don't know why. It ended up that way. I was fortunate and I benefited from the decision. Because I had no choice. It's just instinct. I can't take credit for it.
No, but you had good instincts to do what you felt was worth doing, and you weren't corrupted by any other forces.
Yeah. And I think I knew what it took. And so it mattered so much. And then I think in some ways I've been in this place of like, well, maybe I would like to try this. And that might be interesting to, making a choice from a different place versus I think traditionally it always been, or historically it been, oh, I must do this versus like, oh, that might be interesting. I wonder if I could manage to get this to work. And so I think I ended up in the situation recently with a few different projects where I wasn't completely in it and I had to be in it. And I was away from my family and kids in a way that has made me now going like, well, I'm not leaving unless I have to do it.
Tell me about the documentary where you sort of played yourself.
Oh, right. I'm still here. I finished Walk the Line.
Yeah.
Then I did...
Tell me about that a little bit first. Like, how did you prepare for that?
Right. So, strangely enough, before I was even doing that, my friend James Gray, who's a director, was doing like a documentary, shooting some footage on John and June. And Gladiator had come out, and for some reason, James called me one day and said, do you want to meet Johnny Cash? And I said, sure, and he said, well, he's in town, staying at a relative's house or a friend or something, and they want to come by. So I went over to have dinner with James and Johnny and June and his friend or family member. And I remembered that he was very shaky. And he told me how much he liked Gladiator and that he seemed to, the impression was that he seemed to really like my character versus the character I think most people, liked, which was Russell Crowe's character, who they wanted to emulate. He seemed to really appreciate my character. And we were having dinner and he seemed almost shy in some ways. And
He was.
yeah, he's just, and he has such a big, strong guy, right? But he seemed shy and he was frail. He was shaky. He's really shaky. And he said at some, we finished dinner and he said, should I play some songs? And I was like, no, you don't have to. I felt like I thought that maybe he felt like he had to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't think he did feel that way. I think that it's something that he, really loved and really loved doing it with June.
Yeah.
And we went into this other room. We're sitting there, and he's quite shaky. And I thought I was so uncomfortable for him. I was like, this is just so painful. And then he picked up the guitar and like literally it stopped. His body was perfect. Like literally, the shaking stopped, and he's just strumming. And he's kind of looking down, and then June comes over and sits down. He's just strumming, and he just looks up at her. And it was like one of those fucking moments that you you can't deny there was an incredibly powerful energy in the room. Something came in there and changed everybody in that moment. And he looked at her and they started singing On the Banks of the River Jordan. Is that the song? It's like a beautiful, like spiritual. And it was jaw dropping. The impact of that, and again, is so rich in feeling and history and his own creativity, his purpose, and his shared creativity with June was just fucking unbelievable. Yeah. And I remember just being shocked by that. I'd never witnessed anything like that. And it was a really powerful moment. And at the time, I did not know that I would be playing him or there was even going to be a movie about him. And I don't think it was that long after. I mean, I think it was maybe a year later or something that James Mangold, the writer-director, just sent me the script called Cash at the time. And I think it was just like offered it to me, right?
Had you ever played a actual person before?
I mean, Gladiator is, based on actual person, but no one
you met.
No, and no one that, anybody could verify whether what you were doing or not felt accurate.
Yeah. Did you have any question about doing it?
I think that I had this feeling of like, okay, that's it. Like, of a knowing of that's what the next thing was.
Wow.
Like, just knowing it. Yeah. But of course, see, there's two different sides of yourself. Then there's the human part of you that's, terrified. I'm going to be humiliated. I'm going to ruin somebody's thing. This is their life. Who am I to fucking do this? All of that.
Seems intimidating.
Very. It was.
But I like that you felt the feeling right from the beginning. This is the thing. This is what.
Not like this is going to be great. It wasn't that feeling.
No. But your instinct was you were going to find a way in to do it.
I just knew that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I just knew that it was happening.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, again, it had nothing to do with like, it's going to work.
No.
It just was like, this was the next evolutionary step for me. It was like, here's your next opportunity. Yeah. And you're either going to keep going until these things stop and then thank you.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of cool experiences. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're done. Or it keeps going. I don't know I just know that this is that opportunity. Thank you so much. Now I'm fucked. What am I going to do? The first things I did was work with T-Bone. I said, flew out to LA.
He's great.
Got a guitar. Never played guitar. And, got some lessons, started learning, learned, E to A, got B7, thought I was the fucking shit. So I was like, look out. And so started strumming. I listened to a bunch of recordings that I had of John and just talking, and I did a couple vocal lessons.
Was it obvious that you were going to sing as opposed to lip sync?
Well, not to me.
Yeah.
But James Mangold felt pretty certain of it, and this was probably like 2004 or 5, and so. Pro Tools was in full effect by then, right? Mm-hmm. So there was, I think, probably the possibility of blending stems and note correction and, enough tools, I think, where that became more possible than probably it would have been 10 years ago, right? At least where you would go, we don't even know if this guy can do it, but we're going to do it anyways because worst comes to worst, we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I think everybody was moving forward of just like this kind of like, let's go and see where it takes us. And we just went.
Okay, the documentary.
Yeah. I think it was just a point in my life, like, done all this work. And I think in some ways I'd kind of like hit that first benchmark in some ways. I think Walk the Line was kind of like a thing. And then it seemed maybe the opportunities beyond that, what was coming in of like, well, now that you've really made it, here's what you got. And that was disappointing to me because I felt like to make it meant like, then they're like, now we're going to offer you these shitty movies for a lot of money. That was kind of like the next step up. And I think I was so shocked by that because I think I had this fantasy of like, yeah, it just means that the quality is going to improve. And it wasn't the quality, it's just the quantity improved, right? Of like what came your way. And then it became even more difficult to make choices. And in some ways, kind of antiquated notion of rebellion kicked in of like, oh, I'm just going to do a smaller movie. Fuck you, I'm going to do a smaller movie. And that's also like its own kind of ego trip in some ways. And so I think I felt like a little bit like, oh, what am I moving towards? What is, I don't know. It was the first time that I think I was feeling unsure and a little bit like, for some reason, this image of this movie, District 9, I don't know if you ever saw it. It's like the South African like alien movie, but there's just one point where there's aliens on Earth. It's kind of like, oh my God, the aliens have come. But they're like, it's not like aliens we've ever seen in any other movies. It's just like, one's like just sitting, just pissing, like, right, like out in the open, right? And I kind of, I think, was like thinking of myself as like, it's that weird thing where you become self-aware in a new way and you reject that idea, yet you also realize that you've had a hand in creating that idea and that persona. And so it's like this thing where you're like, am I a part of creating this thing, or was it created for me? Am I just, what the fuck is happening? I'm not feeling good about this. This isn't where things have been leading me.
And you work hard for a long time to get to that place,
right,
to then feel like, is this it?
Right. Yeah, and I'm not going to grow at all doing any of these options.
Yeah.
And
is
if I'm
that
not,
usually the thing? Like, is it looking for growth, looking for something new, looking for...
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like your work is therapeutic for you at all?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's also just fun, and it's everything, right?
Yeah.
There are points where it feels more vital than others. There's times in your life where you're like, this is a fucking turning point. Either restrictions are put on me, I create my own restrictions or liberations or whatever it may be to go to that next experience. And I don't know what it's going to require, but something has to give in some way here. I think part of it was Casey Affleck, who directed the movie, would joke about, we're going to retire kind of thing, Of course, I'm like 32 years old and I'm going to retire, right?
Ridiculous.
It's just this, but in that joke was also this threat to yourself. I think in looking at it now I'm going like, I'm going to put myself out of my misery and put the world out of my misery if something doesn't change, because what's the point?
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a story we tell ourselves to change. Maybe we do grow from it, maybe we don't. I don't know. But that's the story you're telling yourself. Like, I'm not moving. And if I don't fucking move, then fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what stage these things came in, these ideas, but I remember thinking a lot about like being so jealous that, Seinfeld, Ellen, all of these people that had these TV shows, they play some version of themselves. And like why they could do it as a sitcom. I was like, what if you did it, but you made it like it wasn't a joke, like you made it like serious.
Yeah.
And there's something that just like, I don't know, was tantalizing about that idea. I was like, it excited me.
It's really exciting.
And I thought it was dangerous, right? Something
It
that's
is.
dangerous. And then with my friend, I did a fake interview where I was being interviewed saying that I told my agent, I fired my agent. And there's something about just saying that, like doing this fake interview, that it's just like super exciting.
Yeah.
But I made the mistake of like sometimes in a new idea in the liberation, you fall in love with the idea in yourself a little bit and you become cute. And somehow there was some part of me that was still there that was like, you can't do this. You're not good enough to do this, and you need some outside support. And I remember telling Casey about it. Always one of the smartest guys I know, just one of those people that just understands every genre of film. And she was my friend, and it seemed like a fun thing to do. And I don't think at that point, I don't know that it was like, this is going to be feature length or what it's going to be.
Just the concept.
Yeah. It excited me. And I told him about it. And I think that he was not convinced. And I think he saw like that there wasn't enough there. Luckily, I wasn't thinking that. I just had this belief in this feeling, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, he reluctantly would come over to my house and do some interviews and film. And he just always was like a little bit disappointed and felt like there wasn't something there. But one night he'd invited Gus Van Sant over under the pretense of listening to some songs, some rap songs that I had done. And Gus came over, and I think what happened, I think this was what was genius, whether Casey was aware of it or not, in getting Gus to come over. Gus was somebody I had a long history with. He directed my brother in films. He directed me in the film where I started acting again as an adult. I'm 19 years old. There was a lot of history there. And suddenly, when I'm to play him these songs, I'm genuinely scared and embarrassed. Like, is Gus gonna think I'm fucking crazy? Like, these were my feelings were emerging.
Yeah.
And so it suddenly successfully took this outlandish, crazy idea and then rooted it in like real feeling and like in my own insecurity and fear. And we played these songs, and then in that fear, I then had to answer him as if I had a belief in this that I was doing. And these songs were fucking ridiculous, right? Yeah. So I'm playing him these very poorly written rap songs. Yeah. But I have to say to him, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm quitting acting to do this with sincerity. And that was more...
Were you able to do it?
Well, I think there were brief moments.
I see.
And there were enough moments where Casey was like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is just in seeing me struggle to keep a straight face, to convince myself that this thing that I'm doing was worth doing when I knew that it wasn't.
Yes.
And I think that's what the character of Joaquin would be experiencing, right? Where the character Joaquin is going, hey, look, this thing that I've done, I've built, I've created this thing, I don't want this anymore. I'm doing this other thing. Yeah. Am I doing this? Is there anything here? And it was enough to constantly be on that edge. And really what we found was, and the reason why we kept it a secret and really presented it as a legit documentary was really just because anytime that I would do a scene with somebody that knew that it wasn't real, one of our friends or something, for the first 4 months, 6 months that we filmed, I would just turn it into a joke because I was too embarrassed to actually commit to it. And at some point, I think really through Casey's encouragement, it was like, we're not telling people. You're not telling him that.
That's what makes it so great.
Yeah.
That's the magic of it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And it's what made...
Otherwise, it would be Spinal Tap, which it's not.
That's right.
It's some new thing, but also rooted in maybe Andy Kaufman, who would do kind of performance art.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with Andy. And
you wouldn't know where the line was.
Yeah, I mean, years later, when I learned about Andy, yes, I think there were some similarities, but maybe. I don't know. I don't know
I also
enough.
like pro wrestling for the same reason. Like, you don't know. You're told it's fake, but there are guys killing each other.
Right.
And sometimes they really hate each other.
Yeah.
But you don't know.
No, I mean, there were times where it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly I remember it being uncomfortable. And I don't like lying to people. I just don't. And there was a moment when it got outside of our little world that we created and we went public. And I had never invited attention into my life in an active way. I'd been a part of publicity for the movie.
Yes, you're a private person.
But this was... I put myself out there as myself doing some outlandish shit around people that I genuinely admire. And that all I want is for them to think like I'm a decent person.
Wild.
And that was so difficult, and it was really important.
Yeah.
It was really important to go like, yeah, so people hate you. And like, okay, how do I live with that, you know? And it taught me a lot about acting. It was really my first experience where I was doing something that it was probably as close to live as I might ever get, right? Because there were, you know, some things. I mean, I did a show in Vegas. I did a show in Miami, and we did the show in Miami, and we've set up this guy to heckle me that I should fight with. And it's one of Casey's friend. I just meet him for a second before we go out there. He's like, here's a dude, so you know he's going to be stage right. And here's the thing. And so I get up on fucking stage. You know, it's like a club, but it's fucking huge to me.
Yeah.
And I start doing the song. I cannot remember the words. I don't know what is happening. And I'm looking out, I go, where is this dude? It's all dark. You know, it's dark. The lights are flashing. And I just know that there's people. And at this point, it had been public enough to where people are actively, openly mocking me. They're wearing disguises like me. I think even
People dressed as you?
yeah,
That's
like,
amazing.
It was like a fake beard.
Sunglasses.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm private, I'm insecure, I'm scared. I would rather not be thought of.
Yeah.
And it was shocking. It was put out there. And then I just knew the time in the song when I was supposed to be heckled, but I couldn't fucking hear shit.
Yeah.
So I just start talking back, you know, start talking to this crowd, screaming at this person. I can't even see them. And then I just fucking decide I'm gonna fucking jump into the audience. And as I'm like jumping off the stage, I see the guy, luckily, because he was just stage right where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I jumped in the crowd and fucking grabbing him, and we are pulled apart, and fucking the bouncers are there and they yank us up and they pull me in. And I was so fucking jacked up just with the adrenaline that I just started vomiting as they lead me into this bathroom. And I really was, I was sick. And it was like, well, this is just about the coolest experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Like, that's
next level.
Like,
That's next level.
like that is,
Wow.
that is a feeling, you know?
Wow.
I mean, it's that extreme version, right? Because you want to have, it's pro wrestling. You want to have that extreme feeling. I've had powerful feelings in a more subtle, different way.
Yeah.
And I'll never have that again, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because it was an idea. It was a time. It was just when kind of online entertainment was accessible and there was like a need for content. I think if it happened 5 years before, it wouldn't have made much noise.
Yeah.
It just was like, it was the first time that in that period where things were going as viral as they could go. You know, it's where it goes viral for you. The whole world isn't aware of it, but there's enough where it can spin around in its own circle. And so at some point we're like, again, created this thing, had this idea, and then we're being pulled by the gravitation of it. And I certainly quickly became a passenger, you know, in this thing. And I think in some ways it is something that I have repeated in some form. It's from the beginning of my life. There is that, you asked me the question earlier, that are you driving or, are you being pulled? And I think
So you started by driving, but then very quickly got swept up in this thing.
And that has been the goal ever since. I mean, that movie really taught me the value of that.
Tetragrammaton is a podcast. Tetragrammaton is a website. Tetragrammaton is a whole world of knowledge.
What may fall within the sphere of Tetragrammaton? Counterculture? Tetragrammaton. Sacred geometry? Tetragrammaton. The avant-garde? Tetragrammaton. Generative art? Tetragrammaton. The tarot? Tetragrammaton. Out-of-print music? Tetragrammaton. biodynamics, Tetragrammaton, graphic design, Tetragrammaton, mythology and magic, Tetragrammaton, obscure film, Tetragrammaton, beach culture, Tetragrammaton, esoteric lectures, Tetragrammaton, off-the-grid living, Tetragrammaton, alt spirituality, Tetragrammaton, the canon of fine objects, Tetragrammaton, muscle cars, Tetragrammaton, ancient wisdom for a new age. Upon entering, experience the artwork of the day. Take a breath and see where you are drawn.
Tetragrammaton.com.
Tell me about the Letterman appearance. I remember seeing it and just being stunned in a way that made me more curious, wanting to know more.
Yeah, well, it just so happened, again, we didn't intend for the filming of this project to go on so long. We didn't know when we started what it was going to do. It just so happened that, like, it took me a few months before I really gave myself into it, or actually I really found the character, that, like, what I was going to be, right?
Yeah.
And then so it happened that I had a film coming out and I had to promote it. And it was just, I didn't know what to do because at this point, it had been public that I was retiring, that I was doing a record, that I was going to get my record produced. And so I couldn't break character.
It's amazing.
And so
that wasn't a pre-planned thing, but it turned into a great opportunity.
Exactly. And, you know, Casey was like, go on Letterman and you're going to have to do it because what choice do we have? And I was like, right. And so I go and I'm first doing a junket for a film. And to be honest, it's one of James' films. It was Two Lovers is called, and it was a small film, and I love James. I've worked with him forever, and I couldn't talk about the film in a real way, in a quote unquote normal way, because I was maintaining.
Like almost it might have been better. Like it feels like
I don't know if it was better for James's film.
But whatever you did created enough interest where you want to know what this person is doing. For sure.
I don't know, but it was something where, again, suddenly I'm a passenger here. And so, you know, you do a pre-interview with you know, the producer of Letterman's show, and I maintained character, right?
In the pre-interview as well? In the pre-interview. Always.
Right. Yeah. And I said, this is what I'm doing. So, yeah, I'm putting this record. I can't remember, you know, what it was. And I hung up and I was like, I admire Dave too much. Like that guy was like the guy for me, right? And I just showed, I have way too much respect. And I think it'd be foolish to think that I could pull the wool, because I don't think I could, like, maybe the part also was like, I'll never convince him.
Yeah.
But more than I said, Case, I know that we have this fucking agreement to never let anybody know. I had to let him know. I just I'm not going to do it to him.
Yeah.
So I called the producer back and I said, hey, listen, this is the project we're doing. None of this is real. But I hope it's okay. I'm not trying to make you guys look stupid. I want Dave to lacerate me. I said, just you can do whatever you want, please. Because I didn't want them to think like I was coming out to try to make them look stupid, right? Because there were enough people that were saying, is this real? Is he trying to take the piss out of us?
Yeah.
And they said, well, I'm not telling Dave because it's a legal thing.
Okay.
If I did something outlandish and somebody got hurt, they couldn't say they knew it.
I see.
There's no way they didn't tell him something, right? Because if he ever found out...
Did you ever talk to him about it after?
No, just with that, no. So I went on the show, and I didn't know what, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Because I think there were like a couple moments where I probably, again, this is where my experience and the character's experience line up.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I think I might have made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to do this.
Yeah.
And that's what the character would be experiencing at the
Yeah.
time. And so like the project that I'd created, that I was doing, the character had created this project they were doing, and we both are going, I think we might have taken this too far.
Yeah.
And so it had a real energy to it there. It wasn't me sitting back going like, ha ha ha,
No.
fuck all these people, I'm
No.
doing this thing, right? And it wasn't,
No, it was palpable.
yeah, it was like,
It's so funny.
yeah, because it's so uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. It's unbelievable.
And that's,
And
that's,
the chewing the gum. And that all was none of that was planned.
no, and it wasn't.
It was so
It's so funny. It's like, when I look back and I go like, yeah, what did you go out the chewing gum? I didn't even, I think
But
like,
the fact that he called you out for chewing gum
I
is
know.
so funny. And then your reaction was incredible.
and he was just on fire.
He was really funny.
Oh my God.
He was funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very weird mixture of emotion because I was thinking like, we fucking did it. Like we're cutting on Letterman and he's fucking lacerating me. We've been dreaming about public humiliation for the character. Like that was our go.
It was peak.
Like,
It was
and it
perfect.
was like, it's happening.
Yeah.
And it was like, but I don't,
Yeah, I don't want this. I don't like it.
I don't want it.
Yeah.
But also, oh, I can't believe we're fucking
did
doing
it.
it. Yes, we did it.
Yeah. There must be some aspect of freedom about it.
Well, yeah, it was certainly the death of the public, in some ways, the real me, and a thing that I had, again, back to like, I think some of this happens inadvertently, but that we create this persona, that we're a part of it, and the only thing that was authentic was that there was like a person that was like, I'm trying to do something, and now I'm also just really fucking scared and I don't want it to happen anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and there was something pure in that moment
Yeah.
that revealed like a true nature. And yeah, that was, an epiphany. I mean, that was an incredibly powerful feeling. And it was like, well, yeah, that's really the only thing worth going for. The kind of like, I've created a character, I've developed it, I'm staying in my character, I'm doing it, I'm affecting you, I hit my mark, I say my line, people cry here, I get an award. All of that was just fucking meaningless.
Yeah.
It was like all of that thing that I thought was my goal from when I started out young, it became crystal clear that just was meaningless compared to this moment in which a true nature was revealed, that the experience of this person
Yeah.
was revealed. And through character, that was revealed. And it was like, well, of course, that's the fucking goal. And everything else is just noise and unimportant. And,
There's a speech you give in the beginning of the movie where you're standing outside, you got a hood on, and it's everything you say is true. You're saying all true things about what you don't like about your job.
Yeah.
It's really smart in that it walks that line of, yes, it's a character, yes, it's fake, and everything he's saying is true.
Yeah, I mean, because, these are things that I know that I've said pieces of in interviews or my friends had. We were aware of ourselves and each other. It was that moment where you've done it long enough where you no longer are just like doing press going like, what's happening? You're like, oh, I've said these things. I've repeated these stories. My friend says this. I see them desperately wanting that, but saying that. You just become, it was like the age that I was at, that I could see also the part of me that is bullshit. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
And so I could take those things and use them and know that I've said it or I've seen my friends say it in a way, and that I just was just basically repeating that and copying that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a key moment, that scene. I remember filming that,
Yeah.
where it was like, oh, now we're getting into a strange area, and I can't fully articulate what this is.
Yeah.
But again, there's something
there.
that feels that it's
Absolutely.
it's revealing and giving myself over. But honestly, to choose, if it wasn't for Casey and that partnership, I wouldn't have gotten there on my own.
yeah.
I wouldn't have. I wasn't willing to take it public.
Yeah.
I was too scared, and he saw the value. He was like, "You have the idea, but you don't have the fucking guts or whatever it may be
Yeah.
to really. You want to crush your ego, but you're fucking too scared to really do it."
Yeah.
And I don't know if he would have articulated it like that.
Yeah.
But in some ways, that's what it was. I created this thing that was saying all of this is fucking bullshit and everything that I've done.
Yeah.
And the only value is to just like decimate it. But I wasn't really willing to I could only do that in like a winking, laughing way. You guys see that I'm making fun of myself, right? Not like you guys see that I am full of shit. Like, this is all fucking,
That's so wild.
It's like,
how has that impacted everything since?
first of all, I had succeeded in the way that I didn't want to, which was I had actually destroyed my career.
Yeah.
It was a fear, and to feel the effects of it for real were surprising because I was an up and coming actor that I think.
So it really did change in real life?
Oh God, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, because we'd so successfully played with reality.
Yeah.
Where nobody knew anymore.
Right.
My agent, who I told a year and a half prior and did an interview with him,
Yeah.
was like, by the end was like, is this real? Like, we'd gone so deep. And I think when it got so public, I think the feeling was, even if this started out as a joke, even if he's playing crazy, he's actually legitimately crazy because he's doing it. And so no matter what, he's got fucking problems. Like, and no matter what, there's some stink on his fucking name right now that, is
So
not.
perception became reality.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it was for a year, I was this fucking joke. How would you expect me to be? What movie am I going to be in where you're going to take me? What are you going to do? So we were, this is embarrassing to admit, but I think that we were convinced that we had a real shot at making some money on this. And it turns out that it basically bankrupted us. I mean, because, we paid for it all of ourselves and it wasn't, very expensive, but I wasn't wealthy at the time. I'm wealthy, comparatively, but I hadn't paid off my house.
Yeah.
And I was, trying to get the mortgage. And so there was a point where I was like, oh man, I'm fucked. And so began the process of trying to work again. And also for the first time going like, I got to rebuild this thing. The thing I wanted to do, got to build something. Thank God. But I also feel like a slight desperation that I'd never felt before, because as much as I was always building something, I always had like the support and good graces of people around me.
Which we burned. Burned every bridge.
Completely. And so it was like, oh shit. So the first time I was really going to the rooms, like back to when I was like a kid, being like, hey, please, can I? And I remember that one of the only options I had was just, I won't say the movie, but just a terrible movie. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And I just was like, but all that for this. Like, that's not, it just was like, no, I don't know what I thought, but I didn't think it was going to be like that. And I have to say, I have to give credit, because I think a lot of times, agents will get a bad rap, right? And probably for, good reason and shit. But I had recently started working in with this guy, Boomer Malkin. He's a WME agent. He was Patrick Weitzel's assistant, who I'd always kind of dismissed as like the assistant, and you're going to try and, pawn him off of me, whatever. And in this moment of real desperation, I was offered like real money, more money than like I should have been offered, considering. And I'd never felt like I'd relied on anybody about decisions or anything, but I was broken. I was fucking scared. And I remember talking to Boomer, and I was like, dude, I like literally don't. I've never been in a position. I don't know what to do. And he's like, do you have to do the movie? I said, what do you mean? He's like, does it matter? I was like, no. He's like, well, then you shouldn't. And for somebody whose, job is to collect 10% off of you, looking at a real paycheck after you've destroyed your fucking career, I think if his, the higher ups knew that he gave me that advice, he would have been fucking canned. It was pretty bold, and I really needed that at the time. And I was like, thank you. And I fucking locked in again. I was like, in that moment, I was like, okay, boom, done. I'm not after anything. This is where we are. We know it's going to find us. And not long after, Amanda Demi reached out to me saying, hey, Paul Thomas Anderson wants your number. And I yeah, of course. And, Paul sent me the script, which was this movie, The Master. And so that was the first.
So The Master was the first movie after that?
Yeah.
Wow, and that was a great one.
Yeah, that was like, well, I don't deserve that.
Wow.
Like after what I've done.
Wow. Well, it turns out you did.
I mean, I certainly went through the lows of, everything is fucked. And then I was.
That's a happy ending to that story.
Yeah, sure.
That's amazing.
Sure is.
And then since then, what happened?
The Master then became like a total immersion, but in a more classical form. I guess I wouldn't know how to. This is not my language, but like the proper filmmaking. And not to say that what we did was it was a wild experimental thing with video cameras running around, right? And this was 70 millimeter, and it was like this scale in some ways, and the scale of the emotion and the experience between Paul and Philip Seymour Hoffman and myself that I experienced, those two films are the experiences of my,
and back to back.
Yeah. And, in some ways, Paul is such a, such a high level that, to be honest, working on that movie felt like I was making absolute here, in that I was just, navigating this world in this character, and I was at some point was a passenger. This thing started to emerge, and he encouraged and allowed and sculpted. And what happened in that film, that experience, is it made me go like, okay, well, with a director like Paul, you go all in, because there's like, I haven't seen the movie. I don't really know what, I haven't seen it in years, and I don't know what it is, but I do know that there are many scenes in there that are some of the most poorly acted scenes I've ever committed to film. Bad, over the top character stuff. And Paul, I don't remember him ever directly saying no. I think he just went around. He just avoided your shit and found those moments, that where you are connected with another person, right? And there was something with, I had such a deep, like, instant love and trust in both Paul and Philip.
Do you think you're the same actor you were before the documentary, or did that actually change how you do what you do?
Yeah, of course it changed. And then the Master, I think some of what I experienced during I'm Still Here, the idea of like a real experience in the moment, which I'd had previously in other films. I think I'm Still Here allowed me to like, look, I could publicly humiliated myself. It couldn't be any worse. And so that was a liberation.
Yeah.
And I then accepted that that was going to be a part of my process, and I welcomed it. But I knew that that was going to be a part of it, and I was going to do things that if I stepped out of it, were going to be so embarrassing to think about that it would derail whatever was happening. That I had to just stay in it and stay in the fucking pain or the discomfort or the ugliness, and yes, the joy of moments.
Do you take the characters home with you at night?
Consciously, no. I did find on the master, there was some of the physicality was so extreme that, again, there were moments where it fell apart for whatever reason. Maybe you're 5 weeks in and you're feeling a bit more comfortable, and then you talk with somebody on set, and then the next moment it's gone, and all it is that you're looking at yourself like you're away, and it's so scary and painful. And so it was like, I have to stay here just because I'll laugh at myself. I'll just be fucking stupid. What am I doing?
In the documentary, would you say that was the most committed you've ever been to a character?
No, it was like the longest.
Yeah.
It just went on. It was like for a fucking
And
year
because
or something.
it was beyond the shooting. You did it everywhere you went for a period of time. You lived it, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just, when we were shooting, I just didn't go out.
Disappeared.
Because it was like, I don't want to have to,
Yeah.
I don't have to see anybody. I don't want to explain this.
Yeah.
I just didn't talk to my friends because it was too uncomfortable. I didn't want to lie.
Yeah.
So there were like a couple times when it was like, uncomfortable.
From the time you start shooting, do the characters continue to change, or do you have the picture from the beginning?
Oh no, I mean, it's my experience is like, it's 3 weeks before there's anything really worthwhile here. But oftentimes you don't have that luxury. So it depends. I mean, there are things that you just know some parts of it. I knew on the master, I knew that there was something with his mouth on the right side. I knew he couldn't open his mouth. I didn't totally understand what it was. I knew it enough to where I went to my dentist and he glued these brackets on my teeth, and I wrapped rubber bands on them so I couldn't open my mouth. Because I knew that. But at some point, I was so locked into it that I took the rubber bands off because
and you still were there.
That's it. My jaw was locked. I didn't know why. I could have easily 2 weeks in been like, I can't, no, this is wrong. It just was an instinct.
How long was it after the film before you got back use of your jaw?
It was probably pretty quick.
Really?
Yeah. I think, it's like, if you just were like, I'm holding my hands like this, and you just, did that, you just do it, but pretty quickly, I think you'd come back, It's a lot of that character was just tensing muscle. It literally was just a physical state of making things tense so that it just was coiled. And it just held that, and then you stop, tensing. Yeah.
I think sometimes through habit, when you do things for a while, your body gets used to doing it that way, and then it's hard to stop.
I mean, to be honest, I don't really remember.
Yeah.
The thing that I remember is we wrapped that fucking movie. I had just bags of chips and fucking cookies and shit that I'd fucking ordered in advance waiting for me at my house because I wasn't eating for months. And I went home and I fucking laid in bed. I don't think I left my bed for weeks. And I think I just sat there just fucking eating. I literally just fucking ate cookies and watched TV, and I didn't see anybody. And I think that I was just like, what is my fucking life? I just was reduced to an organism that was just trying to like eat, like consume energy. And that's really all I remember about following that movie. So I don't know what, the process was, but I don't think it was anything that dramatic.
When you got offered the Joker, was it obvious that you wanted to do it?
No. First, I liked Todd, the director, Todd Phillips.
Had you worked with him before or no?
I hadn't.
Okay.
And the script's very well written, so it was a great script. And it had this like unbelievable ending. it's like last act that was really shocking. You know, to me, it was a big movie. It was like 55 million, which, you know, I think to Todd was like a small movie, but to me, it was a big movie, and it was you know, what they call IP, right? It's like this thing, and I'd never done that, and I kind of felt like but it was a one-off. You know, was not going to be wasn't, you know, any contract for a sequel, and Todd seemed so like curious. And he just kept telling me that like we were going to be able to do what we wanted, that there was no expectation, there was no studio expectation really, that he was in control. And he had built a schedule that was going to allow us to play, like to try things. And I was like, well, that is just like, all I want to do is try things, and I never really have the resources.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to turn that down, but I still was very unsure, and I struggled with it for months and months. My wife, Rooney, was, you know, at some point she was like, you're doing this. Not like I'm telling you, but like she had a knowing. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to be what you do next, but go through your process. Todd says as a joke, but it's kind of true, that I never agreed to it, and I was already shooting, and I still hadn't said that I was doing it. Like, it was still a possibility.
Understood.
And
Did he ever tell you why he wanted you to do it?
no, and actually, I remember I talked to Chris Nolan about The Dark Knight, and that wasn't going to happen for whatever reason. I think that I wasn't ready then, and that's one of those things, right? Sometimes where you go, why am I not doing this? What does it mean? It's not doing it, and sometimes it goes, it's because it's not about me. There's something else.
Yeah.
There's another person that's going to do something that is like, I can't imagine what it would be if we didn't have Heath Ledger's performance in that film, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Christopher Nolan was coming to me saying, you are definitely the person. I can't remember the context of how we met, but I know that we met.
Yeah.
And my feeling was, I shouldn't do this, but maybe he also was like, you're not the guy. I couldn't say.
But it went the way it was supposed to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in this case too.
You know, I guess so. And true to his word, Todd really allowed us to play. I mean, the first 2 weeks, maybe it was even 3 weeks. 3 weeks sounds insane. That's why I'm questioning it.
Yeah.
But it really might have been. There's very little the first 3 weeks in the movie.
Yeah.
And I was doing a character that was an idea that I had with this certain physicality that Todd and I talked about, and we were doing it. And there's a part of me that was like, I'm not sure about this. And I've had that feeling with almost everything I've done, right?
Yeah.
And one weekend, Todd and I went into the editing suite and watched footage of 3 weeks. And actually, to her credit, I asked Rooney to come in also, because I was like, am I crazy? But Todd and I, and certainly with Rooney's encouragement, I think we looked at each other and we both, it's that kind of thing where, you know, it's hard to admit to each other, but we both have been pursuing this thing going down a road that isn't right. And it's contrived.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most painful version I've ever had of that in my life. Like, holy fucking shit. I've had the embarrassment of a couple scenes, but this is weeks of work.
Yeah.
In some ways, we had the time, and I think that in some ways, Todd and I knew just from talking that there was something more between us.
Yeah.
Even though we couldn't say specifically right then.
Yeah.
And there were some things that were good or interesting about it, or at least felt like different.
Yeah.
But it wasn't real.
Yeah.
And we changed the way that I wore the costumes, the changed hair and makeup, and changed the acting, like radically. And that was a wild experience, dude. It was wild because it was like my first studio movie in a long fucking time.
Yeah.
So I was making, these $20 million movies. And so I felt this pressure. It's like, oh shit, it's a studio thing. And they've paid me some. And this is this beloved fucking like character in the world. And I'm just lost. And I'm just terrible. And Todd was just like, bro, I love you, dude. You're fine. We're gonna do this. We're gonna be okay. I was like, how the fuck could he be saying this? Does he not see how bad this is? And he saw there was something more going on. He kind of was like,
Beautiful.
somehow was able to just bat that to the side. And I was going like, dude, this is the fucking end. Like sometimes you gotta look up and you're like, blindfold's on, there's gonna be a fucking rifle shot going off and that's it. All right, so just fucking take it like a man. This is that moment, right?
Yeah.
I fucked up, you got the wrong person.
Yeah.
We're going down.
Yeah.
And he was like, bruh, no, no way. He was like, no, you're good. Let's go, just go at it. Let's go at it. We got the time. It doesn't matter. Let's change it. Let's work at it. It's okay. So we did. And in that process again was a kind of a death of the ego.
Yeah.
And a death of your ideas, the death of your fantasies of like, God damn, I am fucking good. I'm fucking good. That's a good idea. I admit, I'm ashamed, but I have had, no matter how many times I go through it, I still have those moments where I go like, that's a good fucking idea. That's going to be good. And went in there with a fixed fucking idea, and I stopped having reverence for the thing, and I stopped having gratitude, and I stopped saying thank you, and I stopped saying like I'm along for the ride. I kind of was like, here's the thing. I started like this and do this, and a little bit back to the fucking release story from Gladiator. It's just all that same thing that I have to kind of keep going through. Again, I can't allow myself to be in the business of the outcome and what happens.
Yeah.
But I know the difference between the first 3 weeks and the following several weeks where it's not my place to say what's good or not, but of like, I'm in an experience. Like I'm no longer controlling things. I'm reacting. And then to have that on that scale,
Yeah.
and to be able to have the resources to reshoot things, to alter moments, to go back, that was special. That was super valuable. Never had that before.
That's amazing.